じゃあもう一回聞くけど職業は
専業主婦です。ほら
待って
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Danny here, and today I'm talking to you about The Way of the House Husband. So, The Way of the House Husband, or in Japanese, Goku Shufudo, is written and drawn by one Kosuke Ono in the weekly magazine Kurage Bunch. Currently, it's at 61 chapters at the time of this recording, and it started in February of 2018. I believe it won an award in 2018 as well for Best New Upcoming Series. And we've talked about this before, actually. Again, shout outs to Viz Media for giving us a review copy for the first volume that came out in English sometime last year. And it had the first few chapters in there, and it was very positive. I really enjoyed it. It was humorous and all that good stuff. And I was like, you know what? I think it's time to come back and see what's going on with this series. Let's get right into it, man. So this is a slice of life manga involving our main character, Tatsu, who is known as Immortal Tatsu in the underground world, as he raided one of the Yakuza dens. I think that's what they're called. Just annihilated 10 Yakuza members by himself, thus getting that name, with a crazy back tattoo of a dragon. He has a very intimidating aura and scars on his face, always wearing the sunglasses and classic Yakuza suit. And we've come to find out very quickly that he has now left the Yakuza world and is decided to become a house husband for his wife, as she is a designer for her company. This is one of my new favorite mangas. I cannot wait for new chapters to come out for this. I've had a very enjoyable time going through these 60 chapters that are out. There's never a dull moment with the writing. And, you know, the main gag here for the series is Tatsu looking like a Yakuza guy doing stuff housewives do in Japan. And you would think that would get stale, but just the way things are written and the art does kind of complement the writing, it's just hilarious every single time. There's always something unique about each scenario that he goes through. And then if it's not, at least there's a different twist or like build up from the prior scenario. An example was when he had to take care of someone's dog and then went for a walk with that, and we meet other Yakuza members walking their dogs, and you know, that builds up in a few chapters throughout what's out right now, and it's really great stuff, man. I was laughing, I would say, majority of the chapters, a good 90, maybe 8% of the chapters were hilarious. There's some that are good and sticks with the premise, and they're not bad. It's just I didn't laugh as much because it was just situations where I didn't really find humorous, but it was still good quality content. And I think the thing that really just sets it off is how serious he is. The fact that he is learning all of this stuff to become a house husband, right? To pretty much live in a quote unquote normal society, since he's been with the Yakuza for so long, he's really just trying to change who he is. But the funniest part about it is he still moves, walks, and talks like he's a Yakuza member. Talking about in a grocery store, for example, with his wife, and he asked the employee, "Hey, you got the white stuff? Where's the goods at?" You know, and she's freaking out, thinking he's talking about like cocaine or something. His wife's like, "Oh no, actually, I think he means flour." It's funny stuff like that really gets me. He's a very likable character, and he has his times where he is super serious, and that's majority of his character, but there's times where he can relax or actually break character, and those moments are great too. I just think him being serious, of course, is the main focus. A lot of the interactions he has in the beginning of the series is with a bunch of Yakuza members, and they're always saying like, "Holy shit, is that Immortal Tatsu? What's he doing here?" And they always have a misunderstanding of why he's there, and he's just there for a completely different reason. And it's just really fun overall, man. I can't compliment that enough. And I like the art style. Again, when it gets super serious, the details are nice. He'd like to spend a lot of time on Tatsu's facial reactions as he's trying to seem cheery and happy and all that, but then it's like his face just can't contort to that because he's just been in the Yakuza for too long and he's just super serious all the time. It's so fun, and it's also great when it's very out of place, as you would imagine. One example I can think of is in Beelzebub, right, where it's Oga, he's fighting Toga, and it's like they're just standing there and he's like, huh, what, you want to fight, you want to go, type of thing. Like that stuff to me is funny. And it happens a lot here with all the Yakuza members. And there's even one character that eventually does become recurring here and there, where he's just a normal guy, but he is straight up all serious like a Yakuza guy. And he's talking to Tatsu back and forth. And it's just really good exchange. Ono here really knows how to write these slice of life stories. I looked at his discography. He only has like one other big series that he's worked on. So I might check that out, see what's going on with that. But yeah, it is slice of life, like I said. So the plot's not really there. It's just the daily life of an ex-Yakuza learning to become a house husband. And that's kind of just pretty much it. And it's, again, just him going through different scenarios, trying to learn all this stuff from local housewives in the neighborhood, trying to join associations, and just, trying to have a normal life. And it's nice, like in Komi-san and in Danchi Kokosei, right? Those I like those series a lot, and those are also slice of life like this with no substantial plot. And Dagashi Kashi, right? We talked about it here as well a while back, and that's also slice of life. But then my problem with Dagashi Kashi, and even in Komi-san, was I like these stories, I like these characters, but can we actually get an actual plot moving? Right? And like reading Komi-san up to date, sometimes there was a lot of one-offs, and I was like, no, like let's build this story that we already have, but it's not there. And as much as I want that here in Way of the House Husband, I don't see it actually doing well. I think everything that's going on in each chapter is the best way to do it for this. I just think the way he writes the slice of life, and it probably has to just do with the premise, really, because sure, there's a lot of recurring characters that show up, but it's not like they're doing anything either. They just happen to show up and they're like, oh, hey, I want to do this. And it's like, oh, perfect. I've been learning how to do that as well. So I think it's totally fine to keep it slice of life. However, if there was a time where there should be an actual story arc here, I think the best way to have it would be during a flashback arc in how Tatsu met his wife Miku. I think that would be probably the only story you could tell. Because if you tell a story of him being in the Yakuza, I don't think that would be the best. It's definitely something that wouldn't go with the flow of how the series has been, I don't think, because it would be all serious and there wouldn't be a lot of humor. Having a flashback story, though, where he meets Miku, falls in love, and then the early days of him trying to adjust, where he's still mostly acting like a Yakuza guy versus trying to be normal and everyone's kind of comfortable around him, I think that would be fun and interesting to do. And, just maybe only have it pop up here and there if you don't want to do a full-on story arc for it. Much like in Komi-san, there was a sub-arc going on involving Komi's mom and her dad, and basically how they met and when they dated, and leading up all to their marriage, basically. And they pop up here and there, and those are fun stories. It has nothing to do with what's going on in the current timeline, but it's just like, oh, here's a nice story that is engaging and actually interesting. So I think Ono can definitely do that here with Tatsu and Miku. Or even do one of those things where now that we have an actual cast of characters here, let's go ahead and focus on them for a bit maybe, and then at the end of the chapter do the typical thing where our main character just happens to show up, right? So like we have Masa, who's sort of like the not underling, but he was new in the clan that Tatsu's from, And, he saw him and was like, oh, hey, I know where he is now. I can hang out with the guy and learn some stuff. And then there is Hibari Tori, who is the wife of one of the Yakuza bosses in the area. And, due to circumstances, she has to follow a similar route Tatsu's doing. So that'd be fun. Or even just have a chapter with Miku, with her perspective of how it is to live with Tatsu. The one thing about her is that she's very unfazed by him being just this Yakuza guy. And I think it has to do with the way they first met, which we've, briefly seen in just recurrence sections for pages of a chapter. But it'd be fun to now bounce off some of these characters because, again, every character that shows up that actually has substantial screen time here have been very enjoyable so far. And, Masa's cool, I guess. His character is sort of just the very slackish new kid on the block, and he doesn't have a whole lot going on. So, we don't have to have one with him. That's fine. But yeah, everybody else, I think it would be fantastic to see show up and, have their own stories. Again, we're at 61 chapters here. And, the back of my head reading it is, how long is this going to last? What's the limit for the gimmick of an ex-Yakuza member learning housewife DIY stuff for home? There's always a limit to that. And I think in Komi-san, they understood that because now we have like real plots going on, and sure, we can explore stuff here and there to distract the main story, but still, like, that mangaka understood what he had to do to keep that series going as long as it did. And now we're 2 years in, coming up to the 3rd-year anniversary. What's next for The Way of the House Husband? I'm looking forward to that. And again, I just hope we could get some sort of story involving how Tatsu and Miku met. I think that'd be the most interesting and engaging type of story you could do. Because him being as an ex-Yakuza member and him being in the Yakuza for a flashback, I don't know. I do have to say I really did enjoy this series a lot more than I thought. And I think that has to do with the fact that I am playing the Yakuza series from Sega. And this manga just really feels like those wacky sub-stories. So if you're a fan of the Yakuza series, you're definitely going to like this. I was talking to Grant about it. I was like, dude, you got to read this manga, man. It's just Yakuza. He said, people who have played Yakuza do recommend reading this series because it does feel a lot like it. I'm like, yeah, it definitely does, because if you go on YouTube and watch like those out of context Yakuza videos, they're hilarious. Even if you don't understand the context, I think they're just hilarious of how goofy and wacky things can be in both the side stories and the main plot. But yeah, like the way how awkward our main characters are, Kiryu and Majima, in those games, and them trying to do normal things or get into weird situations, that type of humor and energy is just always happening in this manga, and I think that's fantastic. So I highly recommend you read The Way of the House Husband. I waited this long because I wanted chapters to build up so I could really get into it, and it is super easy to read. I wasn't expecting that. They're roughly 14 to 16 pages long. It's a little short for the average weekly manga. And yeah, because there's not a lot happening. Yeah, you could just breeze through it. I read through all these chapters in about like a few hours. And when I got up to chapter 58, I was like, no, I can't believe we're catching up already, man. I don't want to catch up yet. So yeah, they're doing an anime for this series starting next year, 2021, over on Netflix. That's going to be great. I can't wait to hear the voice acting, I think, because I think that's really going to help sell it. Because they're obviously going to get people that sound like Yakuza people, right? All the delinquent voices. It's going to be so good. So I can't wait to check out the anime. I'll probably be talking about that on the main section of the podcast when we get to that. So while we wait for the anime to drop and for the series to end, that's going to be it for this episode. Definitely doing a part 2 whenever something either major happens or we get to the end of the series. And again, it's going to be interesting to see moving forward what is next for our main character Tatsu, because again, you could really only do so much, right? So I'm very curious to see what's next and how long the series will last if we continue this route. So while we wait, guys, thanks for listening. You can go ahead and follow us on social media anywhere you go on Verse Podcast. We'll let you know when the latest episodes drop. And then you can email us, unversedpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any questions or comments, what do you think of the series? Would love to talk about it on the next episode as always. So thanks, guys. We'll catch you on the next one.